In China, there is a special ringtone. Courts in Jiangsu Province worked with telecom companies to install it on debtors' phones. When anyone calls, they hear an automated message first. It announces the person they are calling has been placed on a court blacklist. They are refusing to pay an ordered debt. Please urge them to comply. The debtor cannot remove it. They cannot silence it. Every call they receive announces their status. It plays for their family, their employer, their clients. The only way to turn it off is to pay. That ringtone is real. The system behind it is real. In 2018, that apparatus blocked 17.5 million flight purchases. It blocked 5.5 million high-speed rail purchases, 23 million blocked travel transactions in a single year. Now, here is the part that doesn't fit. The social credit system you have read about is the one that tracks every citizen's behavior. It generates a unified score. It locks people out of schools and transportation for jaywalking, for saying the wrong thing, for having the wrong friends. That system doesn't exist. It has never existed. Both of those sentences are true at the same time. What blocked 23 million travel purchases is real. The system Western media described for a decade is not. That gap is the story no one has told correctly. In 2016, Netflix aired a Black Mirror episode called Nosedive. A woman lives in a society where everyone rates everyone else in real time. Her score determines where she can live, where she can fly, who will talk to her. The episode was fiction. Within 2 years, Western journalists were presenting China's social credit system as the real-world version. The coverage followed a consistent pattern. China was building a system. Every citizen would receive a score. The score would track behavior across every domain of life. Low scores would mean no flights, no trains, no good schools for your children. The wrong friends could lower your number. Wrong politics could cut you off entirely. The problem was the evidence. Journalists needed something they could show. China's actual social credit documents were dry government policy papers spread across dozens of ministries. But Sesame Credit was easy to find. It was an app with a score from 350 to 950 and a clean interface. Hundreds of millions of Chinese people had it inside Alipay, which they used every day. High scores got you free bicycle rentals and waived hotel deposits. This was Alibaba's private loyalty program with no government enforcement authority. It measured how much you spent on Alibaba platforms, not what you said or who you knew. Photographable, so it became the story. The document that started everything was published on June 14, 2014. China's State Council released the planning outline for the construction of a social credit system. It was a government policy paper, dry, administrative, written in the language of 5-year planning cycles. What it actually said was not what the West reported. 73% of its provisions targeted companies, not individual citizens. Its stated goal was not surveillance. China's market economy had grown at 10% annually for decades. It had outpaced every institution meant to govern it. There were almost no credit bureaus. Courts issued judgments that no one enforced. Food safety scandals were routine. The one that broke through was 2008. Dairy companies had been adding melamine to milk powder to falsely inflate protein readings. Nearly 300,000 infants were sickened. 6 died. Chinese dairy exports fell 92% within 3 months. The government's framing was direct. China cannot enforce its own laws, so it will make non-compliance expensive everywhere simultaneously. One phrase from a 2016 policy document captured the goal. Let the trustworthy roam freely under heaven. Make it hard for the discredited to take a single step. The 2020 deadline passed. No unified national system was in place. The experiment was behind schedule, and it had already split into something the original document never envisioned. By 2015, the social credit system had split into 3 separate tracks. The first was financial credit, a score based on loan repayment, debt history, and banking behavior. China had almost no personal credit infrastructure before this. Building it was unremarkable. Western countries had been doing the same thing for decades. The second was corporate credit, a system targeting companies registered in China. Every business received a unified identification code. Tax violations, environmental failures, food safety breaches, and labor infractions all fed into a centralized database. Companies that failed compliance checks could be blacklisted, with blacklisting by one ministry triggering penalties from all others simultaneously. The third was individual citizen behavior. Western media focused on this track entirely. It was the least developed of the three. In 2015 and 2016, China designated 43 cities to run local pilot programs for individual scoring. They were experiments, not mandates. Each city built its own version with different rules, consequences, and participation levels. By 2021, central authorities required pilots to limit punishments to actual legal violations. Participation became voluntary. The comprehensive individual scoring program was put on hold. MERIX, the leading European research institute on China, published its assessment in 2021. There will not be a unified social credit score that rates individual behavior. An all-encompassing scoring system was not part of the original plan. 3 tracks. One of them was expanding. 2 of them were stalling. Behind the 23 million headline is a single list, the list of dishonest persons, subject to enforcement. Its informal term is Laolai. It means deadbeat debtor. Getting onto it requires 3 things. First, you must have lost a civil lawsuit and exhausted every appeal. Second, you must have the financial means to comply with the judgment. Third, you must have refused to do so. This is not a behavior monitoring system. It is a court debt enforcement tool. What it restricts: flights, high-speed rail, property purchases, private school tuition for your children, civil service positions, and executive roles at companies. By 2019, 13.49 million individuals were on the list. One of them was Liu Hu, an investigative journalist in Rongcheng who had written about official corruption. A court found against him in a defamation dispute. He contested the ruling. The court deemed that non-compliance. When he tried to buy a plane ticket, the system rejected him. He was not qualified. Property was off limits. His child could not attend private school. In his own words, there was no file, no police warrant, no official advance notification. They just cut me off from the things I was once entitled to. Courts in Jiangsu went further. They installed a shaming ringtone on debtors' phones. In Hebei, a court released a WeChat app. It showed the names and photos of every Laolai within 500 meters. The list is real, not Black Mirror, not a warning. It arrives without notice, and it follows your children. Of the 43 pilot cities, 1 became the story. Foreign Policy, The Guardian, and the New York Times all sent reporters there. The city was called Rongcheng. It was in Jiangsu Province. It had 670,000 residents. Every one of them started with 1,000 points. The scoring logic was simple: blood donation, caring for elderly family members, and civic awards added points. Traffic violations, drunk driving, and regulatory infractions subtracted them. Scores sorted residents into grades from A+++ to D. The top grade came with small benefits, roughly $30 toward pension contributions and minor preferences for some loan applications. The lowest grade meant public listing and ineligibility for government procurement or civil service positions. Western media presented this as the national template. The Black Mirror score made real in one mid-sized city. Jeremy Down, the legal analyst behind China Law Translate, offered a correction. The system's punishments were based on government administrative records, not AI, not facial recognition, not mass behavioral surveillance. Most of Rongcheng's D-grade consequences applied to business operators, not ordinary residents. By 2021, Rongcheng revised its model under central government pressure. Punishments were restricted to legal violations. Participation became opt-in. The pilot that was supposed to prove the dystopia had quietly become voluntary. While citizen scoring pilots were scaled back, the corporate system kept growing. By early 2025, the platform held 80.7 billion records covering 180 million businesses. Every company registered in China received a unified identification code. Violations fed into a centralized database. Being blacklisted by one agency triggered enforcement from every other one simultaneously. A tax violation became a customs violation, became a ban on issuing bonds. Then came the moment that revealed what the system was actually capable of. In April 2018, China's Civil Aviation Administration sent letters to 36 international airlines: British Airways, Lufthansa, American Airlines. The demand: stop listing Taiwan as a separate country on your websites and booking systems. Any failure to comply would be recorded in each carrier's social credit file. Most of them complied before the deadline. The government used a social credit threat to make the world's largest airlines edit their maps. Back in China, a 2019 survey by Jiangsu Province found roughly 80% approval for the SCS. The most supportive group was not the rural poor. It was wealthier, older, and better educated urban residents. Their logic: they had been harmed most by fraud, counterfeiting, and food safety failures. They wanted enforcement. A 2022 follow-up study added the detail the approval figure needs. When Chinese college students were shown the system's repressive potential, support dropped 12 percentage points. Only 2.8% of state media coverage of the SCS presented it negatively. People supported what they were told the system was. They were not told everything. The Black Mirror version of the social credit system does not exist. No unified score tracks every Chinese citizen's behavior. It has never been built. As of 2025, it is on hold indefinitely. The 43 city pilots mostly ended or went voluntary. Rongcheng is opt-in. The 2020 goal was missed. No final law has been passed. What does exist is harder to see. Over 350 million cameras are installed across China. Facial recognition systems operate at airports, transit stations, and street intersections. China's courts can stop a citizen from boarding a flight. No advance notice, no phone call, no letter. A debtor's ringtone announces their status to everyone who calls them. Their face appears in a WeChat app, available to every stranger within 500 meters. The corporate system now covers 180 million businesses. It can freeze a company's access to capital markets, government contracts, and banking services simultaneously. Airlines can be pressured to redraw their maps. The 80% approval number is real. So is the fact that Chinese citizens formed that opinion on news that was 97.2% positive. The experiment the West feared was a unified score for every person. It was never completed. The experiment that was completed is less cinematic. It is also more durable, more expansive, and harder to explain in a single screenshot. The system that blocked 23 million travel purchases is real. What a decade of Western headlines described is not. Both of those sentences remain true. The gap between them is where China's actual future is being built. China's social credit system revealed how Beijing manages compliance at home through debt enforcement, corporate pressure, and information control rather than the unified surveillance score the West imagined. Watch how the same patient pressure, without dramatic announcements, was used to dismantle a legally protected democracy in Hong Kong, reducing 50 years of guaranteed freedoms to 23 while the world was looking at the wrong story. Watch, China promised Hong Kong 50 years. It lasted 23.